Hi, everyone. I am Megan with A Cure in Sight and the I Believe podcast. And today we're doing another live podcast episode focusing on men's health. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about the mental side of men's health, which is equally as important. And we have a great guest. Welcome, Alexander. Thank you for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, I run and own Aviator Media. It's a creative agency. We do video marketing, content for businesses. We help them with their marketing and branding, primarily through video, photo, things of that nature, social media, and running ads on Facebook or YouTube and on TV.
Ooh, that's very exciting. All
It's
right.
fun.
And what are we going to talk? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That sounds like a lot of fun. And what are we going to talk about today?
So, you had reached out to see feel if anybody had any conversations about men's health, and I do think men's health is important. I mean, just to I guess kind of go right into it. I think it's important. I think for a long time it was overlooked, but I also think that if we're not careful, sometimes men can kind of clutch on that too much also. And I guess we can get into what I mean about that if you want.
Sure.
When you and I had talked on the phone the other day, a lot of men my age, anyways, we were raised by men who were a certain way, and then but now in this climate, it's a little bit different. You're allowed to actually show your emotion without any judgment and things of that nature, which I think is pretty important. But I also think there's a far extreme to that where you could show too much emotion and you forget to get a grip on reality because you still have to perform, you still have to take care of things, you still have to do things. And like we talked on the phone the other day, I think that's where a really supportive partner, like I was telling you about my wife, she makes things so easy, but also at the same time is not afraid to say, I'm going to need more from you from right now. You know what I mean? And that sometimes you need to hear that because it's not always, I don't think it's always good to just vent, vent, vent without actually taking some type of action to fix the situation that's going on.
Definitely. And I think that everyone can relate to that. We don't want to get stuck in those negative spirals where we're just focused on the negative and not what we can do about it.
No, 100%. I didn't grow up with a lot of affection, a lot of I love yous. There was a lot of love in the house. My parents were great. They were working with the tools that they had, but there was never any like I love yous or any like affectionate hugs or anything like that. And so I think that could be the reason why I'm super affectionate with my wife. I never really cared too much about love languages and stuff like that, but she kind of had looked into some of that, and she's like, "Yeah, I think your love language is touch and affection." It's like maybe I don't know, I don't care. You know what I mean? I just know what I like and what I want to do. But like I said, I think when I see online a lot of guys talking about men's health and how they're depressed and this and that, I think it's a real thing. But I keep saying, I also think that one of the best ways that we as men, only speaking as a man, is for us to constantly keep taking action. I'm not trying to say suppress your feelings, deal with them. I think you have to voice them to someone that you confide in. Because I think stuffing them all the way down, they're just going to come out one other way that at a bad time, most likely, through being upset. So I think it's important to talk and have those conversations. But I also think it's just important to keep taking action and being an example. Because as a dad, you know that you're supposed to be example. I have 4 daughters. So I also know that how I am with my wife, that is hopefully teaching them an example as who to look for, what qualities to look for in a future man. But it's hard to be a positive role model sometimes and deal with stresses outside of the home and not bring it home. So you want to keep it contained because you don't want to pollute your children's minds with any negativity. You want to pollute your wife's mind with any negativity. And then if you're actually trying to go somewhere with your family, like a vision of some type of dream that you guys have for each other, you're trying to cultivate, sometimes surrounding yourself with the old guys that you used to hang out with isn't conducive to that future or the behaviors that you're trying to change or the person you're trying to become. And so a lot of times I think what men don't talk about is they feel very alone in these types of circumstances. They feel very isolated. And that's why I think something like what you're doing right now makes it, somebody might see this and might be like, okay, cool. I think he understands what I'm going through. Maybe I just didn't have the right words to put it in.
Definitely. I think there's a lot of pressure on men to be masculine and to be caring. And because you're right, we are in a different climate now where when we were kids, it was a lot different. And so now it's like you have to be emotional, but you also have to be masculine. I feel like that is a lot of pressure to put on somebody. And it is a balancing act that you have to kind of figure out where to find your balance. So I imagine that could be very hard.
I only think it's hard if you are. worried about how other people are going to see you. And I think the minute you get rid of worrying about somebody's judgment, I think things become a lot easier. But it does become hard to your point, in the sense of, like I said, we like in our household, it's a pretty traditional household. Our roles tend to be kind of traditional, but not traditional in the sense of like, okay, you're a man, suck it up. I do believe some of that. And again, I was raised that way, but I also know the unhealthy side of that, which is why, like, you know, our oldest child is 23. Our youngest is 14. So 14 to 23. So dating has started happening. And we have a 22-year-old who's married. She got married 2 years ago, 1 year ago, I'm sorry. And so the guy thing has come into play already. And my personal feelings about my girl's dating. So, whatever. This is something totally different. But as a dad, I want to make sure that they're taken care of. The flip side to this is that we raised them to be independent. So they're very strong girls. They're very clear normally on however clear a 14 or 19 or 22 or 23-year-old can be in their life, because they're still so young. But we've tried to raise them to really know why they believe in what they believe in, even if it's different from what we believe in. Just know why you believe, be able to back it up. But with that being said, the guys that they are most likely looking for too are guys that they want to be confident and also not be afraid to take lead, if that's the case. And so I think right now it's kind of hard for guys, because, so am I supposed to be masculine and take charge, or am I supposed to just kind of like let her take charge? And I think that's a very one-on-one conversation between you and whoever your partner is, because not all relationships are the same. But I think it starts with the guy knowing more about who he is and who he's comfortable being before he starts involving somebody else inside of his life, or before he becomes a part of somebody else's life.
That's a really great point. Yeah, and you're right. Every relationship is so different. So for men right now that are resonating with what you're saying and they're going, "Man, I'm struggling with that too. Like I'm supposed to be sensitive and I'm also supposed to be masculine and I got to, go out and work and pay the bills, but I also have to be present for my kids and at all the games because let's face it, parents today have a lot more on their plate than in past years. There's a lot more social activities and we're expected to be at everything. There's no drop your kid off and pick them up like, when we were kids, we got dropped off a lot.
Right.
Now it's like you can't leave. You have to sit and watch this practice and all the practices. So for the guys out there who are watching and they're feeling this, what do you say?
And again, I think it's very individual, but so I don't want to make a blanket statement, but I think this rings true with a lot of guys. I think especially if you grew up where you weren't really allowed to show a lot of emotion, or if you grew up in a time where maybe you didn't get everything you needed as a kid. um, I've seen that those guys tend to try to be more present for their kid because they're trying to give them what they didn't get. And I think you should be there for your kid as much as possible. I mean, just like I said, between now that they're 14 to 23, some of the best days were back then when they were like 2, 3, all the way up to 7 or 8, before they started hitting puberty and having a little bit of an attitude. Those were like some of the best days. And so I think you should absolutely do as much as possible for your kids. Here's what I'll say about all that. I think we have to think about what it is that you're trying to accomplish. What is it that you're looking for as a guy, as a father, as a dad? I think if you're trying to be happy and you're trying to find it by uh, I don't know, you need a day for yourself, and you don't want the dad duties or the husband duty, and you're trying to be whatever makes you happy, right? I think there's a misconception as to what makes us actually happy. I don't think that makes us happy. I actually think if you are devoted to your family and you're devoted to your wife and your children, I think them, like, you doing as much as possible to give them the best life possible with as less stress as possible, with total security as much as possible, with less confusion, clarity. And that's when I say lead a family, that's what I mean by helping them feel secure, giving them the tools that they need to succeed at whatever it is they're trying to strive for, letting them know that they can come to you. If you just need to listen, we need to learn how to listen more. Men, we tend to try to fix everything. I'm so guilty of that. So my wife is a blessing for being so patient. But I think we're not looking for happiness. We think we are. Well, I don't think we are. I think what we're looking for as men is fulfillment. Because if you ask most dads what they want for Christmas or their birthday from their children or from their wives, I think most guys would tell you all they want is a hug and a kiss and an I love you. That's it. We don't, I don't think we want material things like that. I think we just want to feel appreciated and loved from the people that we are doing everything for. That's what I think we should be searching for. So if you're a guy out there and you're hearing this, just try it out for a second. I understand that you want to be happy. Everybody wants to be happy, but I think our real happiness comes from feeling fulfilled when we do our duties to the best of possibility for our family and our children.
I think that's a great way to look at it. And I think, like, along with fulfillment, purpose, also having that sense of purpose, because so many people are like, well, I don't know what to do with my life, or I don't know why are we even here? And once you find what your purpose is, I think that leads to fulfillment, doing what you feel like you're called to do. So if it's having a family and you can show up for them and you feel like you're succeeding at that, that's going to totally fill your cup.
I 100% agree. And I also think it's really unfair for I think some families and some people to expect an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old to know what they want to do with their lives right after they get out of high school. It's not like it was before. The really cool thing about the time that we live in is there's so much opportunity for our kids, which I think you should give them the opportunity to try these different things out. But that doesn't mean like, letting them be lazy. Because I think that's one of the biggest faults that we have in our society right now is that there's so much laziness. People are scared to try things. And I think the only way you get more confident in taking, positive risks is by just trying, not overthinking it and just putting it out there, just trying it. Worst that can happen is you're going to learn a lesson from the mistake, and then you keep moving forward. And so I think it's a great time for people to try to discover their purpose. And I think if you're a guy, for example, and you've been married for 10 years, let's just say, and you wanted to become a musician, but you ended up having a family. So now you're just working the grind, 9 to 5, and so I know what that feels like to be detached from what could have been. I think a better place to reassess and reframe things is to look at what you do have. You actually have a family. Let's just say this guy, you have a family that you get to take care of. A lot of people out there don't have what you have and they're struggling for that. And the way that they're overcoming not having children or a wife is they're burying their head working, 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 working. But all they really want is what you have. So it's always, I think, starting from a place of gratitude for what you already have. Even the stuff that's not working out for you, I think that's you're in the middle of a learning season if something's not working out for you. So try to actually listen for a second and learn what the lesson is. I think you start there, and then I think you start going into things that bring you fulfillment, so you can start discovering what your purpose is. Because you do need a purpose. If you don't have a purpose, you're kind of aimlessly being blown in the wind.
Definitely. I totally agree. And you can't get to fulfillment without purpose. And there's a great quote that says, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great.
Yeah.
And I think that falls right in line with what you're saying. Just try something. And even if you're terrible at it, try it. I got a call this last summer asking if I would host a podcast that I had never hosted before. And I said, of course I will host a podcast. Why wouldn't I? And you know what? It's fun and I'm enjoying it. And am I the best at this? Probably not. I've only been doing it for a few months, but I'll keep doing it and maybe I'll get better. And I don't know, you guys can leave me a comment and let me know how I'm doing. But I could have said, no, I've never done that. I don't know how to
Right.
do it. And I wouldn't be here today. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. So I'm glad I took the leap and jumped in. And I'm glad I'm doing this. And so,
I mean, to your credit, if I can, for your audience too. I mean, like I said, I found out about this because you posted something in one of the groups that we both belong to on Facebook, and you had some people
yeah.
respond to you. But you're doing this on top of everything that you're dealing with personally, not dealing with in a bad way, but just like you have a lot going on,
Yeah.
as a parent, and with the extracurriculars that they have, and we were talking about this on the phone the other day, you and I, and so I give you a lot of credit because I think you're going along with it in a perfect manner, knowing that it's not perfect and you're trying to juggle all these different things, but you're still just going anyways, as opposed to just standing still. So you're to be commended for that too.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, you'll never figure out if you like something or not unless you just try it. And I'm a firm believer of that. I have tried lots of things I've decided that I don't like doing, and I quit doing them instead of staying and being miserable at it. And, sometimes you're in a job where you can't leave and you don't have that choice. But
Right.
if there's things in your life that you do have a choice and you can change, I think people still get fearful of what will happen if they change it, even when they do have the ability to.
No, yeah, and I can speak to that too. I think one of the key things as a human being is to, at some point as an adult, you realize you can't change other people. All you can do, like if that's why they say you have to be the change you want to see, because you can't force somebody else to be a certain way. You can only do it by example. And if they're open to follow your example or listen to you and talk, then cool. But most people you can't change. And I say that because, at least for our relationship, we've been married. oh my gosh, she's gonna kill me. 18, 19 years almost. I think almost 19 years this coming May.
I think once you hit a certain amount of years, they kind of blend together because I'm the same way. We're like 21, I think. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I could give or take a year or
Yeah.
two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like once you pass 15, you're like, I don't know.
Castle Biosciences is a proud sponsor of this I Believe podcast. Castle's innovative uveal melanoma tests provide valuable information about the risk of your eye cancer spreading to help you and your healthcare team individualize the management of your disease. To learn more, visit castlebiosciences.com.
But I don't think you last that long without having strong foundations. And you know,
Yeah.
our foundation was always a strong, open communication where we were both very honest about anything. If it upset us in the beginning, we talked about it. If we didn't think it was a big deal, we talked. So there's very clear conversations. I don't want to say lines because it's never felt like that. It's never felt like this, like type of thing. It's just been very open communication. We're best friends. We grew to be best friends like within the first couple of months of knowing each other, and it's
Yeah.
only gotten better over the years. And I think the foundation of that is the communication, knowing out of the two of us, she's the way more patient, graceful. I swear she talks to animals when rainbows come out, and like she's really sweet. She's that person. I tend to be a lot more fast paced, kind of aggressive. I like things a certain way. Um, it's kind of funny. Have you ever seen this movie called His, Hers, and Ours? It's with Dennis Quaid, um,
Yes.
and Renee Russo.
Yes.
That's kind of how it was because she's very like happy free, and I'm very like we can't do that because we got to be like this, and you know what I mean. But I think over the years, it's kind of melded to a really great balance where I'm way more tolerable on certain things, but I still have my standards, and she's
Yeah.
less naive of the real world, but still has her positive, optimistic spirit, which you never want to kill in anybody.
Right.
I say all that to say that, like I said earlier, a lot of men don't listen. Sometimes we think we listen, and it's just because we're just trying to go to A to B as quick as possible. Like this is the problem. Here's what we need to do to fix it. But I've learned that sometimes, like at least my wife, sometimes she just wants to tell me something without any feedback. And then having four daughters, I've learned that a lot. Like sometimes they just want you to listen and not just have anything to say, at least not then and there, you know? And the reason I bring that up is because to bring it full circle to what we're talking about, I was at, I won't say the name of the place, but it's in DC. It's a financial institution. I was there for like 15, 16 years. It was the corporate world. And all throughout that time that I was there, I was always filming family videos or children. And I also had an affinity for business. I had already had like six, five different businesses on the side. And then I just got tired of it. And so she was like, why don't you just quit the cushy job and start doing, just make your own business, fusing your passion for film and stuff like that and helping businesses. And I told her, I was like, I don't want to do it because you don't understand. Like, you don't understand. We're going to be struggling. We're going to be, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, we're already living check to check. At least you'll be doing something that you love. And the commute won't be, 3 hours out of the day back and forth. And so I took her advice, and it was the best thing I could have done. And it's not the first time she's given me like amazing advice. And I actually listened. And it was the best thing I could have done. But if I hadn't listened to her, given the opportunity to like, you know what, let me take this chance. And we went into it completely dark because we're a family of six, four kids still under 18 at the time when I left that job, risking everything for this thing that we thought would pan out all right. And it was hard, definitely the first couple of years, but like I said, this is where like a supportive partner really comes into play. But I think the base is having that open communication.
And that is huge to walk away from the cushy job and totally take a leap of faith that you don't know what's going to happen. You could
Yep.
fail, you could not be able to support your children. So, I mean, that's huge props to you for doing it and then being able to succeed with it. That's huge.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. I keep going back though. If you're a single person, you should totally do it. Like if you're not happy where you are and you have an idea of starting something, just take the risk. And even if you fall flat on your face, as long as you walk away learning something, you can just start up again. If you have a family, it is a little bit harder, but that's where I think having the supportive partner that just trusts you, or if you're the one that's doing it and you have to convince the partner, then you kind of have to like this is where your reliability as a person with your word comes into play. If you want to do something like this and your spouse knows you to never come through on your word, or never sees the action behind any of your ideas, they're less likely to feel safe. And I think ultimately that's what it comes down to. A lot of times a spouse just wants to feel secure. They're like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know you always come through one way or another. So I trust you. And I think that's kind of the point that you want to get to be able to do something like that.
Definitely, I totally agree. And that, I mean, trust is so crucial in any kind of partnership, whether it's your marriage, your business partner, whatever. If you can't trust that other person, you really don't have anything.
That's 100%. I mean, the first 3 months that we were dating, even though we became best friends or whatever, I kept asking her when the joke was going to hit because I didn't believe that she was as cool as she actually was. Like how I thought it was fake. And I was raised to believe that if it's too good to be true, I promise you it's too good to be true. And
Mm.
she, this is going to sound cheesy, but this is why I believe in God. And this is why I believe anything. I don't care what your dream is, anything is possible because I'm a firm believer that if I'm allowed, despite all the things that I did in my youth that I think was stupid and wrong, if God's been allowed to bless me with my wife and we've had this amazing marriage and this family, then I know anything is possible. Anything is possible. And maybe you don't have that in your life. Maybe somebody watching this doesn't have that in their life, but there is something that should be proof to you that good is possible. If you're feeling depressed or down right now, there's something that's happened in your life before that is, even if it's just a glimmer of proof, that there is some good. And if you're allowed to experience that good, that means anything else is possible also.
And I think a lot of people also will self-sabotage because they don't think they deserve it.
Yeah.
And that is the root of a lot of unhappiness, is thinking that you don't deserve it, because a lot of people will derail themselves and it's totally subconscious. You don't realize you're doing it. You kind of need somebody on the outside to be like, why do you keep doing this same spiral? Why do you keep doing these same patterns? Before you realize that you're actually sabotaging yourself. And it's way more common than I think people realize.
100%. Something that has helped me over the years because I've hit that spot so many times before in my lifetime, especially like when in the early years of the business when you're making the phone calls, you're reaching out to people, you're trying to do the thing, and it's not panning out. So then you start getting down on yourself and that you suck at this or you're no good at this or you really start beating yourself up. Actually, what you're doing is however you were probably raised by your parents, even though again they meant well and they were just working with the tools they had, you're probably saying the same things when you messed up as a child that you heard from them to yourself, which is where the whole self-talk comes into play.
Yeah,
I
and
have
that's why, like, as parents, we need to be so conscious of how we
oh yeah.
talk to our children, because they tell you you are their inner voice. When they talk
Yeah.
to themselves, it's through your words.
Yeah, and as to add to that before I go back to the other thing,
Yeah.
and it sucks for the older child. I'm an older child also, so my brother got it less than like less. It wasn't bad. I don't want to make it sound like my parents were bad because they weren't, but they definitely were more open to him trying things and being a little more tolerant with him than they were with me. He also learned from me what not to do to get on their good side, so that's valid too. But it sucks that because like the oldest two, they're only 8.5 months apart, so they definitely got the lesser version of what I got from my parents from me. Where then the third child, it was a little bit more balanced between Liz and I on how our parenting style. And then with the baby, the 14-year-old, I mean, she's gotten the most attention for sure. We've made sure to be at every single thing. We give her a lot of support for everything. And again, it's one of the realest things I ever saw on Instagram, which is so funny, was that when you have kids young, without realizing it, your kids are watching you grow up also, which, it's not fair to the kid, but it just is what it is. Like a lot of times when we get into families early, we think we're ready, but sometimes we're actually not. And we're still growing up emotionally and maturity wise and tool wise. I think if you release expectation from your actions, I think that's a big help because you have no control over the outcome. Like if I'm trying to get you to hire us to do creative work for you, and you either don't have the money, you don't like our style, or you're just not ready yet, or you just aren't convinced of whatever the reason you say no is. If I keep beating myself up because you're saying no to our offer, that's not my job to know for a fact that you're going to say yes. My job is just to follow up, give you the offer, and continue moving forward. That's the seed. And I think as long as you focus on planting the seeds and cultivating the seeds to the best, leave the outcomes. I say leave the outcomes to God. If they're going to happen, they're going to happen. That's not up for you to decide. It's just the taking action part. So many times when we're short on money, and this wasn't happening, this wasn't happening, this wasn't happening. The minute I sometimes fell into a depression, but the minute I didn't fall into a depression, instead decided to do something of action, whether it was taking a run, doing the yard work, um, cold calling somebody, something totally different out of nowhere, the thing just would start flooding. And it happens all the time, all the time.
Yeah.
And if I ever find myself in one of those situations again, my wife, again, being my best friend and knowing how I am, she will just remind me, it's like, maybe you need to go for a run. It's like, yeah, maybe I need to go for a run. And then boom. It's so weird how that happens. I can't explain it. I think sometimes we clog up our own blessings by overstressing. And so maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. So if you're in that situation where you're feeling depressed, I would say, I don't care if it's getting up and cleaning the kitchen counter, do that. If it's reading a book, do that. If it's doing jumping jacks, you have to do some type of action.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is energy too. You know, when you're in a positive space with your energy, you keep it going. And once you settle into that negative space, and it's kind of like with like exercise, for example, you know, a body in motion stays in motion, a body at rest stays at rest. It's very similar to all of those things. Get up, go for a run. You'll come back, you'll feel energized, you'll have your endorphins going, and maybe you
Yeah.
can start something that will start that ripple effect that will change your energy shift and unclog those blessings and get them coming back in. But also remember that if one door is closed and you're devastated because that's the door you wanted, that might not be the right door for you, and that might have to close so that a different door can open. And I know people say that all the time, but it is so true. I
It's
mean, I've
true.
had that happen before. It's so true. I've had that happen in my life where I thought something didn't work out and it was because I sucked, or this didn't work out because you know, it's not fair, whatever, whatever. And then something else happened later that I thought, well, if the way I wanted it had happened, this better thing would not have happened. And it's happened over and over. So I'm a firm believer in not trying to control things,
Yeah.
because I have already learned that if I let go of control, it will happen the way it's supposed to happen. And I that might sound silly to some people, but
No,
I'm a total believer in that.
no, 100%. I mean, I've seen that happen over and over again. And it's so funny. You always have a plan when you start a business. You think you're going to start here and your goal's here. And what you end up finding
Yeah.
out is just like you've seen in the drawings online, like it goes here, 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 here. And it's so funny.
Mhm.
Like the, the more you realize setback, the more you start to actually gauge gut feeling, I think. Understand that it's not just a straight line. Understanding that you set out on this goal, but all of a sudden there's way more opportunities that start opening up if you're open to be aware of what's possible as opposed to like being so fixated. I guarantee you, if I was so fixated on some exes in the past, I never would have met my wife. And that would have
Yeah.
sucked. You know what I mean? And that's why leaving it up to God, I think, and moving forward has a lot to play with it. Because I do believe that, like you said, some things aren't just meant for us. And I believe also too, sometimes for people, anybody out there struggling with money, or with love, if you can't manage $5, it's going to be real hard to manage $5,000 or $50,000 or $500,000. If you only think about yourself and you feel lonely, it's going to be real hard to show up for somebody else in your life. Which is why one of the things we've always told the girls is whatever you feel like you're lacking at any given time, give that thing. So if you're feeling lonely, send somebody a text that hasn't heard from you in a long time. Let them know that you're thinking about them. Let them feel thought about. If you're feeling broke, give your last $3. I mean, those $3 aren't going to save you. So buy some kid at the store that you're passing by. I don't know, a candy store, whatever it is. But the point is to not feel so attached to these things that actually could be holding you back.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I love that idea. There's just so much that we can control and so much we can't control. And I think when you get stuck in that, trying to control the things you can't control and then neglecting the things that you could control, and you get out of balance, sometimes if you just can step back and look at it and say, like, you know, these things I'm going after, can I actually control them? No. So I'm going to let those go. And these things over here that I'm totally neglecting, maybe my health or my cleanliness of my home, my
Yeah,
dogs, my kids,
yeah.
whatever. Can I fix that? Yes, I can. And shift those priorities. Instead of sitting there and obsessing over the thing you can't control, focus on the thing you can control, and then those things will hopefully fall into place once you get in your rhythm and things start moving again.
See, and that's that type of conversation. And that I think a husband needs to hear. Like exactly what you just said. We've had those conversations also. It's exactly what someone needs to hear because I do think that guys are very designed to win. Like it's in us that we want to win. We want to know everything. We want to make sure everything is in our control. But that's a fallacy because there's no way that can happen. Whereas what you're talking about, I think sometimes we need to hear that from somebody that we know actually loves us and isn't just trying to sabotage us because we do enough sabotaging on our own by the way that we think and our brute force mentality and all that.
Aura Biosciences is a clinical stage biotechnology company focused on developing precision therapies for solid tumors that aim to preserve organ function. Our lead candidate, Belsar, is currently in late stage development for primary choroidal melanoma and in early stage development in other ocular oncology indications and bladder cancer. Our mission is to grow as an innovative global oncology company that positively transforms the lives of patients. For more information, please visit us at aurabiosciences.com.
So that's why I think conversations like that with somebody that you trust, like a spouse, are super key and crucial because then you guys become one unit and literally can take anything on together. But I do think it takes both of those things, the direction, but at the same time, it's okay if this isn't working out right now. That's okay. We can do this. Like it's a partnership, you know?
Yeah, and it's good to have someone who can give you that honest feedback in a safe space, who you trust, where you're hopefully not going to feel defensive, where you can be like, oh, I have been doing that lately. Okay. Versus, no, I don't.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I also think it's cool to keep your person in check too. Meaning, at least I can only speak for myself. At least, I never want to be told like, "Oh, you're fine," if I know I'm not doing the best that I can. But
Yeah.
again, the person that you are sharing your life with, if you've been together for a couple of decades, they know the cadence and they know when you need that extra nudge. They know when you need not to be babied at all, because you also when you. I'm just again just speaking as a guy. Every single guy
Yeah.
that I know that has overcome some type of adversity or limiting belief, in the short term, they feel that little feel good of like the sympathy. But in the long term, it eats up at them because they know that they can do better. So what they get more out of, I don't know, building I don't know, something from IKEA, putting that together for you. They prefer that as opposed to and feeling a little tiny fulfillment from that than the pat on the back and like it's okay about the client not calling you back. It's okay. It's okay. Like you need both, but like they get more out of feeling accomplished of something. So that's why I think it's so important for
You
guys
get
to
a
really
win.
get into this thing of like accomplish something. I don't care how small it is. Just you have to have little wins or big wins, but just try to accomplish something.
Definitely. And depending where you are in your life, that might be as simple as getting up and taking a shower. So, like, we're talking about a lot of big things, but if you're in a place where, like, literally getting out of bed and getting to the shower is a win for you, that's okay. And you can start with literally just that.
Yeah, 100%. And if you do it again the next day, and then you do it again the third day, now you're building up consistency. And when you are able to rely on yourself consistently, that's where your confidence starts coming in. Accomplishment and consistency, in my opinion, lead to confidence. And once you start building up that confidence, then you're able to take risks moving forward without beating yourself up. But it starts with taking that one action, having that little win, and then having it consistently, and then continuing to put little more wins on top of that.
Think about how you talk to yourself in your head. We touched on that earlier, but that's such a big one too, because if you are looking for a relationship or maybe you're trying to fix the one that you're in, think about how you talk to yourself and then think about how you talk to your partner, because if your inner voice is not nice, it can come out to your partner that way, or your kids, or whoever you're around, people you work with, whatever. And I think once you kind of start changing that inner dialogue to be kind to yourself, it will ripple out. And you do deserve kindness from yourself. And one way that I have a friend who doesn't speak kindly of herself. And I told her, I said, would you say that about your friend? And she, like, oh, I'm so lazy and stupid. Would you say that about your friend? Would you tell me I'm lazy and stupid? And no, then why would you say it to yourself?
Yeah,
So
it
that's something to think about.
no, but think about that. That's rampant everywhere, especially with
Yes.
teenagers. You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's so weird where that comes from. Like, I
yeah.
mean, nowadays teenagers only because we've had the girls. Some teenagers are quick to say like, "Oh, I'm gonna shoot myself." Like, and I don't like that because I know they're just saying an expression, but that I feel like the more you say things out loud, the more you kind of put them subliminally into your mind. So like you have to be careful with how often you think or say something. I do think that it does affect you. And that's why I think you should, like you said, be more positive and kind to yourself. Something that used to help me when I'd be down, get out of bed, would be like, would I want, one of my daughter's names, would I want her boyfriend to be this way? I want to act I want to act the way that I would want her husband to be. And so if I don't want her husband to be lazy or non-moving or self-sabotaging, that means I need to get out of bed and do something. Like I have to be that example. So that would get me out of bed. Is Liz, my wife, does she feel proud to have me as a husband? Well, if I'm laying here in bed depressed, I know she's got a good heart. I know she's patient, but I would rather her look at me like, that's my husband, as opposed to like, you know what I mean? And sometimes, and again, that's weird. That's a fine line too, because that could make you sometimes get more depressed because you're like, oh, I just can't. But you can, But like you said, something as simple as like, he took a shower first thing this morning today, as opposed to the past 3 days. That's awesome.
The baby step is
Oh
fine, but
yeah,
for
yeah,
some people, that shower is enormous. It's not a baby step. So whether you see it as like, oh, I only took this little baby step, or you see it as I did this huge thing, it progress is progress.
yeah.
And as long as you are happy with where you're at, that I think that's the most important thing is give yourself some grace and talk kindly to yourself and celebrate those wins, whether it's something little or something big, and don't beat yourself up. If you mess up, say, okay, that wasn't how I wanted it to go. Tomorrow I'm going to do a better job. But don't beat yourself up and be like, oh, I did this. I'm so stupid. I'm so lazy.
Right.
Like, you cannot go there.
Right. Nobody's perfect. And I think that's the other thing here, that nobody is perfect. Nobody is actually judging you as much as you think you are. You're judging yourself a lot more than anything else. Which is why, like, I agree with you. The small win is a good win. But like I said, it always goes back to action. And then once you just start taking random actions, then you can start being a little bit more intentional about it. But the point is to be moving, like you said. What did you say? Motion. What did you say earlier?
I don't know.
Some.
I said a lot of things.
you said
Um,
you said something about energy
oh,
and motion
a,
is.
a body in motion stays in motion. A
Yeah,
body at rest
yeah,
stays at rest.
yeah. That
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
And it's true. Like when you take a week off of the gym, you do not want to go back there. That is the last place you want to be. But when you show up, not every day, but daily, most of the time, you're excited to go. You know you're gonna feel better if you go. So it's just that kind of mindset.
And that's a great point, actually, because I do believe in a whole bunch of patterns. Like, I think patterns are everywhere. And I think a lot of times, if you just stop and look at the patterns, that's the answer in everything. And you've seen the trees and how they resemble, like our lungs, riverbeds from the
Yeah.
aerial view. There's all these different patterns.
Yes.
You know that you sometimes don't want to get up and the effort of changing into your clothes, driving out to the gym. You're not in the mood to do it. But you also know that once you're there, after about 5 minutes and moving, and then going through the workout, you start feeling a little bit better. It still sucks, but then by the end of it, I mean, you're so glad you went. And it's just moving forward towards the thing you don't want to do, but that you know that you need to do to feel great, that's going to be healthy for you. It's like that for everything. The cold call, the reaching out to and having that hard conversation with that family member that you know needs to be had, instead of putting it off for like a whole another year. Like that thing, everybody has that one thing that they're avoiding to do because it's so hard. I really do think that you need to run towards that thing and get it over with, however, whatever it is, and you will feel so much lighter after that. Whatever that big thing is. It might even be just as simple as going to the gym or taking a shower. But once it's taken care of, it's like this, you'll be able to breathe. It's like having a clogged nose and you'll be able to like really take a deep breath in?
Yeah, because it sets you free. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a huge procrastinator of things I don't want to do. So I will procrastinate something and then I'll stress out about it for days, going, oh, I didn't do that yet. Oh, I still have to do it. I didn't do it yet. And then when I finally do it and it takes me 5 minutes to do it,
Yeah.
I feel free. And then I say, why did I do that a week ago? I don't know.
You and
Because I
Liz,
didn't want
you and Liz need to be friends.
Yeah. But it is hard and you psych yourself out that like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'll deal with that later. But really what you do is you stress yourself out for a week thinking about it. When if you would have just done it the first day, you would have felt better. And I'm speaking to myself because this is my own problem. This is my cycle.
No, well, it's like that with everything. I think, like I said, it's everything, everything. So yeah, I
Yes,
agree with you.
and that everyone who's watching this understand that we're saying these things because we've been through them and we know them. We're not trying to be preachy and be like, "Oh, you need to be
No,
nice to yourself." We're saying it because we've seen the
yeah,
difference because we've gone there
yeah,
and we've done it both ways, and we're bringing you our experience of what works. And while he's the guest speaker, I'm gonna add some of my 2 cents in as well because I do think that it's important to hear from people who have gone through all of these things and can give you a little bit of insight or perspective. And whether you take it or not, I mean, that's obviously up
right.
to you. But
No, yeah, I've been broke. Now you'll never hear me tell you how to become a millionaire because I'm not a millionaire yet, so I can't tell you how to do that. But
uh,
I have been in horrible relationships. I've been in good relationships. I've been a bad boyfriend. I've been a great boyfriend. And I know I'm very confident in knowing like why our marriage works. I'm very confident in knowing why, you know, what mistakes I made in the past that led to a lot of the dumb stuff that I went through and a lot of the stuff that I've done to remedy that. So I feel so confident talking about that type of thing. And also, I've beaten myself up so many times as a teenager, as a young man, as an older guy now, as a father, as a husband. So I know what that feels like to feel very alone. And I can't stress enough, like, if you don't have that supportive spouse, like I can tell that your husband has a very supportive spouse with you just from your personality and how you talk. I don't know him, but I imagine you guys are it's the same way. Um,
yeah,
but I also know like
definitely.
I'm not lost on the fact that there are a lot of guys out there that don't have that, or a lot of women that don't have that. And I get that. So then in that situation, I still think that you can be a formidable force of good to yourself by doing the small wins, like you said, even if it's just getting out there and going to the gym or joining some type of group or being active in something. Um, I would stop waiting for somebody to come and help you. The first part
Yes.
is actually moving forward. I don't know if and I'm not trying to again preach to anything, but I just think there's something to be said here. Uh, a lot of times the miracles that happen in the Bible, they didn't happen just like that. Some type of action had to happen. Everybody's familiar with the story of Moses and the crossing of the Red Sea and all that, right? But God didn't just part the sea according to the Bible, right? He told Moses he had to lift the staff. Like he literally had to make an action. Once Moses did that,
Mhm.
then it parted, which shows that Moses actually had to have faith that what this being told him was that as long as he does this action, the sea would part. So there has to be a bit of faith behind the action that you're putting up. Nothing happens without any action. I'm hoping that's kind of like the key
Mhm.
term here that sticks with anybody that's going through a funk right now. That the remedy to it is some type of action.
Yes, absolutely. And I really think what you said a minute ago was really important, that you can't wait for someone to come in and save you. And that goes right back to what we said earlier of you can't save anyone else. Like this has to be a personal decision for yourself. And if you are either looking for a relationship or trying to get out of a bad one or trying to fix one that's a little bit broken, any of those things, it starts with yourself. You
Yeah,
have to fix yourself and you have to heal yourself. And it's not just fixing and, oh, I need to be better. It's healing. Why is that problem there? What do you need to heal? And again, give yourself some grace, work on that healing, and figure out what you need and how you can provide that for yourself, because you can't show up for anyone else until you can show up for yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest things people miss.
yeah.
And that relationship is not going to work until you get you fixed,
That's
healed,
beautifully said.
however you say it. I think when you do that internal work, you realize how impactful it is. And
Yeah,
then it's like the whole cup thing we all hear, you can't fill out of an empty cup. It's
yeah,
100% true. Once you get yourself healed and you release your traumas, your angers, all those things that are kind of festering in you, once you get that out and all you have left is kind of love and happiness in
yeah,
there, now all of a sudden you can give to everybody else and you can be the person you want to be and do all those things, but
yeah.
you gotta get that yuck out of there.
And the other thing too, I think, I mean, I can only speak for myself. I think it's the same for other people that the older we get, you find new things that, oh, this is why I used to do that, or this is why I'm this way. And it's interesting
Mm.
as you get older, you start doing so much more self-reflection. Some things you've made peace with, some things you're like, no, I still want to change this about me. Or seeing an old relative and like, that's why I'm this way. Like it's the joke right now
Yeah.
is like when my kids see my dad, they're like, that's why you're like that. I was like, yeah, I got it from him. You know what I mean? And it's not like a bad thing. It's just so funny to see. And so I think that journey of healing different little things, regardless of the extremity of the trauma or the thing, I think it's always going to be occurring. Like, I think you have to be okay with also like discovering something new. That doesn't mean like, oh, great, more baggage. No, I don't think that's what it means. I think it's just you're discovering yourself because you didn't really have a chance to discover yourself the way that you thought you could when you were younger, or maybe the way that you needed to. So as long as we're on this side of the ground, there's always going to be learning and there's always going to be a way to improve yourself. I don't believe in stagnation. I definitely believe you're either growing, even if it's 0.5%, or you're declining, you're going backwards. So those little increments of wins, like we talked about earlier, I think are super important. So,
Yeah, I totally agree. And it is a process the whole time that you're working on yourself, building your life, working on yourself, building your life. I mean, it's a constant evolution process as you go through your entire life. And there might be things that come out when you're older that you realize triggered you that you never thought did before just because you've changed and you know it's interesting the way that things manifest and like you said your daughters can say oh you got that from your dad.
yeah,
It is interesting to have other people look at things that you do and be able to give you feedback on it and tell you what they think about it that you didn't even realize maybe that you even did it.
oh yeah,
So it's
oh yeah. And trust
interesting.
me, if you got little ladies at the house, they'll definitely let you know.
Well, I have all boys over in this house and they don't we have all teenage boys. They don't talk a lot. They kind of are in their recluse age, which
Yeah,
is
I get.
okay. And you know
Yeah,
what? But you know what? I'll tell you what, as a mom who used to be the center of their world, who now they like I'm lucky if they come out and talk to me. I had to get over that and realize that it's not personal. It's nothing I did. If anything, I've given them a safe space where they can go be teenagers and they don't feel like they, have to come out and sit with me and they don't feel obligated. They can kind of be free and do what they want to do. So, on one hand, I was a little offended and like, why don't they like me anymore?
yeah.
But then
No,
on the other hand, I had to realize no, they have their independence and their space and they know they're in a safe, loving home and they know that they're free to come and when they want to come hang out with me, I'm here and they're not like trying to get my attention
right.
because they've had it their whole lives. They don't need it, which is the whole point is for them to grow up and not need it.
I
So,
yeah. That
yeah,
that that was that's a. I was just there.
hard.
I was just there with you. Not too long ago, a couple years back, because I've always harped with like, especially guys. A lot of guys hold on to their heyday, like they talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
past years, they talk about high school, things that happened before family, and it used to annoy me so much because I'm like, dude, like, what are you talking about? You have the best life right now, like, why are we still holding on to that? Like, it used to annoy me, and so I used to hate that a lot, and I would try to get them to see that like this is the best time right now because you got this, whatever. Anyways, the point is that as the girls were getting older, and then the oldest moves out, my feelings got hurt, right?
Yeah.
The second one goes to college. Uh, she gets married to her boyfriend. That kind of hurts, right? And then the third oldest ends up going to college. And the thing is, I I all of a sudden was realizing, and in this conversation with Liz, and I was like, you know what? I'm holding on to the past because I missed that time frame of 4 to 8, 9 years old. Like the fact that once they start leaving the house or they're grown up and not spending as much time with you, even if they are home, it hurts as a parent because you miss being like their number one, or you miss being like it took me so long to get over that. It took me so long. I'm not even over it completely, but I understand it. Like you were saying, 100% everything you
Yeah.
said was spot on. But it took me a while to really come to grips with that. But that's a very real thing, though.
No, it totally is. Like I really got my feelings hurt at first and I was like cuz they're staggered, there's 3 of them and so it was one at a time. And so
Yeah,
one of them would like stop socializing with us and I'd be like, "Oh, he doesn't like me anymore." And then the next one and then the next one and
yeah,
now most days I'm in the house. They're home, but they're all in their rooms. They're all doing their thing.
yeah,
Sometimes they're in each other's rooms and they're giggling and I hear them, but I'm not a part of very much of that. And I definitely had to be like, okay, that's their
yeah,
independence, and it's not personal, and it is hard because it does hurt your soul a lot.
Yeah. But you're right, though. Ultimately, you do want them to be able to have that independent thinking, and they're figuring them things out on their own. Like that's why you raise them to be able to be adults that can function in society, wholly. And but
Yeah.
yeah, man, that's the one part of parenting that I don't, I'm just letting anybody who isn't a parent yet or who hasn't had teenagers yet, that part hurts. But when you come out to the other side, you understand a little bit better about it. But yeah, it hurts, man. And my wife, she didn't take it so hard like I did. And again, I think it's because it's the mother with three sons and the dad with four daughters. It's that dynamic. They
Yeah.
were daddy's
We're both
girls.
on the opposite side.
Right. You have
Yeah.
daddy's girls to all of a sudden like independent women. You know what I mean? And it's just like cool, but I miss being called daddy, by my little girls. You know what I mean? As opposed to like, okay, dad.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, definitely. And when they're out, dress shopping and doing the things, they're gonna call mom.
Oh yeah, of course.
And when my kids are hanging out, they're gonna be watching football with dad.
Yeah.
So we're kind of on the opposite end, being not the same gender, which, not to say that they wouldn't I feel like people are gonna yell at me because I said that. But
Again, I wouldn't worry about it.
a little bit, they kind of are gonna be more prone to the gender parent,
I think so.
anyway,
No, I do. I mean, again, you have three sons,
yeah,
so I feel like you
I do.
know a lot about boys, and I have four girls, so I know a lot about girls and about young ladies, and that's what I saw. I was the fun parent when they were little, but as they've gotten older, they're calling mom about everything, which is cool because they have a best friend in her. So I think that's awesome. And at least they're talking to one of us about something. They don't have to talk to both of us, but as long as I know they're talking to one of us, I'm a happy dad. But I do miss that part. But I totally get it. I mean, they're women. You know what I mean? They want to talk to mama, and that's totally okay. You know what I mean?
Totally. And at the end of the day, they'll still talk to us a little bit. They still love us. They're still here. We're just not the center of their world like we used to be. And that's a for real mental health issue when you hit that point. If anyone out there listening has teenagers or empty nesters, maybe you're even ahead of us where all your kids are out of the house and you're listening to us going, just wait till they all leave you for real.
I know,
Like,
right?
every stage is hard. And
Yeah,
to the parent of toddlers who's going, my God, I wish I could have 5 minutes away from these kids. Y'all are so lucky.
yeah,
To that person, we see you too, because that's exhausting. And we went through that, and I am glad I was a young mom because I did it in my 20s and I could not do it now. Like, oh, for the people who have kids in their 40s, God bless, because I don't know how you do it.
yeah. No, we
So
were.
every it's hard.
No, we were young parents too in our 20s also, so there's a lot of similarities there. So I think you and I are very much on the same page with how all this stuff has happened. Um, I don't know if I told you over the phone when we talked that last time, but we just became grandparents. The daughter that got married a year ago, uh, or a year and a half ago, she just gave birth to a baby boy back in February. So now we're officially grandparents, and there's finally a little boy in the mix. But here's the other side of it. They're all the way out in Washington State, and we're over here in Virginia. So yeah. So
That's
yeah,
as far as they could get.
yeah. So
Darn it.
not in a bad way. He's in the military, so he's stationed out there. So that's why they're out there.
And then they'll be moving around. They'll
Yeah,
be
yeah,
somewhere else
exactly.
soon.
Yeah. So it's always
Mhm.
something new to wrap your emotions and your love around. But I mean, like I said, it's always a growth and process as long as we're alive. So
Definitely. And as long
yeah,
as we can see the benefits of each of those phases and not get stuck
yeah,
reminiscing on the old ones as that was the best, it's okay to reminisce and say, oh, I loved being a teenager. I loved having little kids. You can love all of it, but don't get stuck in this sucks. That was better.
right. Yeah, don't
Figure
do
out
that.
what's beautiful about today and what's going to be beautiful about tomorrow, and kind of have that best day ever mentality if you can, where you're like, all right, today's going to be the best day ever. What am I going to do today?
Yeah.
Tomorrow, today is going to be the best day ever. What am I going to do today?
Yeah. Focus on what you can actually change and handle and take action on. And again, I go back to don't have any expectation of like, I need her to say yes to this, as opposed to like, let me just put the best foot forward because I'll be happy with my performance in doing this one thing. And it'll be what it'll be after. At the end of that, I'm not a fortune teller, so I don't know. But I will walk away being way happier knowing that I gave my best effort with the client, with my wife, whatever. And, so I think that's how you move throughout the day positively and optimistically, like you said.
Definitely. And I think, just one thing to hit on before we close it out that we already said, but just to kind of repeat is let go of expectations and let go of control. Do your best, do the best you can do. But if you're sitting there focusing on what you're expecting and what you wish you could control, you're just going to go in a death spiral.
And look, if there are any guys out there that, whether you are single or you are married or whatever, and if you want just one regular imperfect man's opinion on it or some feedback on it or even just to vent to another guy, by all means, feel free to reach out to me, in a message. And because I know sometimes we feel like we don't have somebody to talk to. So, you know, if it's not somebody, if it's not me, find somebody, because I do think you're never really isolated. I always, if you do feel that isolated, I believe in prayer big time, and prayer has come through for me so many times. But I know not everybody does. I definitely tell somebody to try it if they never have. But if you haven't, and you need somebody to talk to about, what would you do in this situation? I've probably been in that situation as a young man, as a dad, as a husband, as a boyfriend, whatever. So just putting that out there in case any guy, is feeling like they need to talk to somebody, to another guy.
Well, thank you for offering that because I'm sure somebody is really happy to hear that, and we really do appreciate it. And I mean, you're a safe space for probably anybody listening to this. You don't know their friends, you can't go tell their secrets. So, I mean, I think that's an amazing offer.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. No, yeah, I'm not going to go tell anybody.
You don't know anyone they know anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking with us about the mental side of men's health. I know we covered a lot and we kind of bounced around from all kinds of, I think, really crucial mental health topics. So I hope that you guys all got something out of this and enjoyed our conversation. And to everybody who's watching, you can go to acureInsight.org and subscribe to our newsletter up at the top if you want to stay connected and get all the latest updates from us. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is the I Believe podcast on YouTube. And you can also pick up this podcast on Spotify, Apple, and anywhere else you get podcasts. The edited audio version of this will be released later. This one's obviously live, and it's on Facebook and YouTube. You can find the live version in both of those places. And we would just love to thank you guys all for tuning in and being here. We can't do any of this without you. A huge thank you to our sponsors and to everyone who helps make this podcast happen, because there's a lot of moving parts and it does take a lot to get this free information out to you. And make sure you join our Tuesday night Zoom sessions where you can connect with other Omis in the community. And if you have any other questions, please reach out to us. We're happy to connect with you. And please leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of this episode. And if there's anything that you want us to touch on in the future, leave us a comment and let us know what you want to hear, because we would love to make that episode for you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. This was a fantastic conversation, and I truly hope that people will get something out of it. And I know I did. Just talking to someone who backs up what you think it's a fun time to discuss. So we would just really appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right. Bye, guys.